Hello, English Without Borders students. My name is Henrique, and I'm a teacher here at the program. And I'm here with Lara today, and she's going to talk a little bit about her experience during the Fulbright process. How are you, Lara?
I'm doing well.
Would you like to introduce yourself for us?
Sure. My name is Lara. I'm from Boulder, Colorado, in the U.S. I studied at Princeton University, and now I'm here teaching English as a Fulbright scholar.
So thank you for being here, first of all. And I would like to ask you something about the experience that you had so far. So to begin with, what was your expectations? And not expectations, sorry. Cortei. Uh, First of all, what were the first things that you did when you arrived here in Londrina?
So some of the first things I did were pretty logistical. I made sure to get settled in my apartment, which was really key. I met my roommate, you, and we had a really nice lunch. So I made sure to connect with the people who I was going to be living with and staying with for the next 9 months. And I also, in the first few days, went to the university just to check out the campus, find my way around, learn how to use the bus, and I figured out where the grocery store was. Some of those really basic things just to make sure that I had all of the resources I needed to just live everyday life.
Nice. And do you have had any expectations about Londrina or about Well itself?
So I didn't have too many expectations. I had done a little bit of Googling to learn some things about the city. So I knew that there was Lago Igapo, and I knew about a few things that I wanted to do. But one goal that I had was to really keep my mind open about Londrina, especially because there's not a ton of information about it on the internet since it's not a huge tourist destination. So I wanted to see what it was like from the perspective of people who live there, and one of my goals was just to keep my mind open when I arrived.
Very good. So tell me a little bit about how do people react when you arrived here?
People were so positive. I definitely think that that is one of the privileges of being a U.S. citizen, is that often when you travel, people are really excited to hear that you're from the U.S. People a lot of times will try practicing their English, or will ask where I'm from. We'll talk about where they've traveled in the U.S. if they've traveled there. So I think I can say with total certainty that in almost every single interaction I've had, I've gotten just a really warm, loving, enthusiastic, exuberant response from Brazilians.
Okay. And if we move to an academic environment, what were the cultural difference that you face comparing US to Londrina or better, your university to Well?
So there are a lot of differences. I think one thing to note in terms of differences in approach to teaching has to do with teaching English for Brazilians, from Brazilians and for Brazilians. There's this amazing attitude here at Well about how English doesn't have to be a native speaker focused language to learn. We don't have to just think about how people from the US or people from the UK speak the language. It's about how Brazilians speak the language. And so that was a big paradigm shift for me, since coming from the US, so many different programs are native speaker focused. And I think that that was a really important paradigm shift that opened up my own mind to all of the different possibilities of the English language. Now, talking more logistically, I think that there are a lot of institutional differences between my US university, Princeton, and Well. One of them is that Well has very strict divisions between courses. So if you study English, you take all of your classes within the English program. If you study history, you're all within history. Whereas the US has a much more liberal arts education model, where even if you have a major and you sort of have a home department where you take most of your classes, you can circulate a lot more between different spaces. And then beyond that, there are a lot of other just differences in institutional structure that I had to figure out day by day, and I still don't understand fully the entirety of the university system. But that's one of the coolest things about traveling to a different country, and specifically working or studying in a university. You really get to see all of the differences in education possibilities. And I think the final thing that I want to emphasize is that WELL is an amazing public university, right? And the university I studied at in the US is a private university. So here, there's students from a ton of different walks of life, which adds a huge component of diversity. And that's really an amazing and eye-opening experience. It shows what the US could do if we invested more in our own higher education system.
Thank you for the comment. That was really good. So last but not least, I would like to hear one tip on what I should do and one tip on what I shouldn't do in the first weeks when you arrive in a new country. Could you tell us something?
Sure. I think the tip for what you should do is be outgoing as much as possible. Obviously, there will be times when you just want to stay in, alone or in your room or something like that. But if you dedicate time in the first few weeks that you're in a foreign country to getting to know as many people as possible, that builds a community for you. And then later, months later, or a few weeks later, you can relax and not worry as much about spending a lot of time with people. So as much as you take care of yourself, it's important to try to be extroverted in those first few weeks that you're there. In terms of things not to do, I would say don't try to impose your own cultural views onto what's going on in your new city, your new country, right? Because I think that there is a time at which relativism doesn't work, where you will pass judgment about the different ways that things happen in a different country. But the time for that is not in the first few weeks when you're there, because it's really hard to have a full and complex understanding of what you're seeing and what you're experiencing until you've been in that country for a little while. So I think it's important to not pass judgment, to keep an open mind, and to have all of the conversations that will later give you enough information to make informed and exciting new cultural decisions.
Wow. So thank you for helping our students here today. And now back to class.